Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the latest thread. I hope you're enjoying your summer so far. We've had some time to relax, and now it's back to sharing some information with you. We have a couple of guest speakers with us today. We have Eric Smith from Gammill Tech Support, as well as Andy Hamfo, also from Tech Support, and they're going to share a little bit about what it is that they're doing. And so I guess the first question is, what do you guys do at Tech Support?
I'll take that one. So Gammill Tech Support, we are basically here to help you when things start going wrong with your machine. Every once in a while we get calls about questions about the actual quilting part, and we're not real good about answering quilting questions because we don't quilt. We know how to fix things. So if there's something mechanically wrong with your machine, or you're having issues with your Statler and having computer or software issues, we're really good at that stuff. And that's where we can get you back to quilting and back to doing what you love. We're working on getting a variety of different ways that you can contact us. It was basically just call us on the phone. But in the last few months, we've implemented a chat feature on the website at gammill.com. You can click on the chat, and you've got 3 to 4 agents available at your disposal to ask questions and get help. Now, sometimes if the questions can get, if the problem is a little bit more technical, a little bit more in-depth, we may ask you to go ahead and call in, just because it's easier to explain and troubleshoot over the phone versus through chat. We also try to monitor the Facebook groups, sometimes in our off time, sometimes while we're at work. We don't actively monitor the Facebook groups, but we try to help out while we can. And those I'm referring to, like the Gammill long arm owners groups. We've also got video conferencing that we've been doing lately. So when you call in or when you talk to us on chat, if we feel like it'd be better to see what your machine's doing or to see what you're working on, we can do video chat through Zoom. It helps greatly to be able to actually see the problem, have eyes on it. So yeah, but we're here to help you when things break and things go wrong and you're at your wit's end, and try to hopefully give you a little bit of peace of mind and get you back to doing what you love.
So Eric, that was awesome information. I do want to ask, so is that for any type of machine, or is it, just for computerized machines, or is it also for like the older machines when people can call tech support?
Right, great question. So it's for any Gammill you own, from Statler, Elevate, the Vision 2, the Vision 1, the Plus, what we call the Minus, so the machines that didn't have stitch regulation before the Plus came out, even back to the DC1, what we call the green machine. The DC1 and the Minus are getting a little more difficult to not necessarily diagnose, but get parts for sometimes. So some things on those we don't carry anymore. That doesn't mean you can't get it fixed, because some of our dealers out there have things laying around that they can fix it. And it doesn't mean it's a total loss. It's just getting a little more difficult than the newer machines.
So a question for either one of you. Do you find that people, or do you encourage people to contact their dealer first when they have problems, or do you encourage them to call tech support directly in order to get the best information?
So ideally, we'd like for people to contact their dealer first. Mainly because sometimes there's not a relationship established, and we like for people to have that relationship with their dealer. And the other reason is, anytime we diagnose a problem, there's likely a chance you're going to need to order a part, and we don't do any direct sales through Gammill parts, so you're going to need to order that from the dealer anyway. So a lot of times you can get a hold of your dealer many times. It's usually a pretty simple solution, and they should be able to guide you through that. If they can't, then they'll direct you to tech support, and we're here and happy to take over and help. And I will say, you mentioned at the beginning that everybody's had a chance to relax and people are kind of getting back to work, and we're starting to see it. We've probably had more calls this week than we've had in the last month. So we know you guys are out there quilting.
Yes, we are. Any questions from you guys?
Yeah, I was just interrupting with one.
Good.
So what's like an average day of tech calls? Is there any such thing as an average day?
You want to take that one, Andy?
There's not really an average day. It can vary from, no calls in the morning, almost no calls, one or two, to by lunchtime, we've had, more calls per hour than we can pick up the phone. It just varies per day, and I
I've
think
kind of been, sorry, I was kind of been trying to watch for some trends the last couple months, and there's really not any. It seems like maybe like middle of the week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, maybe Thursdays are a little busier, but it's pretty random.
I think people get together and they talk it over the side. On Tuesday we're all going to call.
I'm curious, like if it gets worse during full moons or like Mercury in retrograde or like.
We did have a Friday the 13th on a full moon that was rather interesting. That was a busy day. But we get through it, and we always, if you leave a voicemail, we always get back to you. It just might take longer than you would like sometimes.
Yeah.
But we always answer our voicemails and get back to you as soon as we can.
Awesome.
I will say we've had a few people who, just as a tip, who either got our email from their dealer or they already had our email from a previous interaction. And we've had a couple times where someone will email us and that's their first initiation of the conversation. And we don't always respond to email quite as fast as we would a phone call. So you might email us and we're not expecting it. We may not get back to you quite as quick as if you would call in.
Yeah. I think we're all like that with email.
Try and check the email as often as I can. Actually, the email can be very nice for some issues where I need to send PDFs. So if an email is sent in, depending, we have the Statler support email that goes to the general tech support, and someone sends me an issue for a real common one we saw was the Statler 7.1 install on standalone. There's a really common issue, and I could send out an email to solve that. Boom, and it would save a phone call. So some things were really nice emails for. Some things are going, okay, wow, I need to call this person back because I don't want to try and talk this over the email.
Yeah. So it's a
You come in the morning to a bunch of questions that were overnight.
Sometimes Monday mornings can be interesting because as you know, on the weekends, people like to have problems still. I don't know why. You're not supposed to have any problems on the weekends, right? But
we seem to have a few more now that we've opened up the chat on the website. Even when we're not at work during business hours, you can still go to the chat and send us an offline message, and we'll respond to those by email. And so some of the morning response has increased because of that.
And that was actually going to be one of my questions because, like you said, people shouldn't have problems on the weekends. However, we work on the weekends. So, what are the alternatives for either people that have problems late at night on the weekends or even your international customers, with the time zone differences? What are their options?
There's right now, it's if your local dealers might have different hours that are available, especially for the international dealers. We have I know that we have a really good dealers in Australia and in England. Those are the ones I've dealt with the most. So they're pretty good at covering their time zones, and they call us at strange hours so we can talk to them. But I've been talking usually in Australia. Let's see. Late afternoon, it's early morning for them, so we'll talk to them then. Talk to Marino a fair bit there. But emails can be for different time zones. Emails can be really useful because we can, we can get the email in the morning, send it. They can see it in their morning and send it back. Kind of have a delayed response there. And it works out pretty well still.
The initial contact, we may not be available at that moment, but when we are and we see that you emailed us or that you called, if it's necessary and we need to, have an agent, be available by phone at an odd hour, we'll take care of that, and we'll do what we can to get you the help you need.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be there 24/7. It's just, but if the response is good, the next day, I guess quilters are not very patient people. So they want an answer like right this second,
Right.
because if you follow the group, as you said, you do the Facebook groups, you do see the posts. I'm having this issue right now. No one's answering. Well, but the nice thing about that is that you see that people that have experience, whether it's the correct answer or not, but, they feel like, oh, okay, so it could be this, and then now they're willing to wait. But, so that community, I think, is helpful in itself.
It really is, yeah. It's really nice to see people trying to help each other all day long.
Sharon or Jody, do you
I
have?
do have two questions, and you guys can either both or separately answer them. Curious what your most common answer that you've given would be. So the thing that you've been able to solve the caller's problem or the person who writes in the most often with, and as well what might be the most unusual or surprising answer that you've been able to, or culprit or reason for somebody having an issue or problem in your experience.
Right. It seems the most common. I tend to deal with more of the mechanical side type thing. We have. I don't know, so it's common, but it's more common than what you think. A lot of people that say my machine's not running, and they just simply didn't turn it on. That does happen. Matter of fact, earlier this week we had a lady who had a Statler, and she said, I cannot get my computer to run. She said it's not running, And so we started thinking, and at one point we asked her what type of computer she has, and she went down to look at the computer and realized she had not turned it on.
Power.
So she said, I'm extremely embarrassed, and she's like, I want to cry because I feel like an idiot, but we get busy and things get overlooked and you get complacent. And
if she feels like an idiot, if she happens to be listening, she can be reassured that your answer to this question is the most common. So
yes.
there's a lot of people out there that it's been maybe an on-off or power issue,
absolutely. Right? Well, and I always tell people, when I was a kid, anytime I couldn't find something, I lost a shoe or lost a hat or something, I would look and I couldn't find it. But as soon as I yelled, Mom, I'd find it. So that's what we're here for. You call us and things get better.
Yeah, I'd agree there. On the Statler can be tricky too, because they turn the computer on, they start up Creative Studio, and it comes in SAM mode, standalone mode, and they start panicking because it's not supposed to do this. And it's not always just the red and green switches, that needs to be turned on, but I'd say there's a top three things that the top three most common would be red and green switches. Something came unplugged, loose cable. The first thing we have anyone do almost is turn it off, unplug everything one by one, put it back together. Make sure there's no loose cables, because that can cause so many issues. And then the third one is actually the most interesting problem too. I'm more used to the Statler, by the way, than the other machines. That's the one I have the most experience on. It's the one I get the most calls for. And on the Statler, as you know, it has handle switches, the red and black handle switches. Not everyone uses them. I find a lot of people mostly use the 6-button keypad. But those handle switches can go out, and when they do, they can cause a lot of weird issues. Some of you may have run into this before. So this is a blend of several customers, so no name is being named, but they call in, and they've had their husband, son, friend who's very techie. They've looked at the machine. There's something wrong with the glow board. It's doing this absolutely weird thing. They're sure that the machine's completely shot, and they've even replaced the front handle switches. But the trick is the back handle switches can go out too. And what was happening was the system would always close any pop-up box instantly. Any box pops up, it would close out. They couldn't single stitch anything. And all it was the back right handle switch was always being held down, basically. They switched that handle switch out, they're good to sew.
So most of the time they're easier fixes than not.
Usually it's a pretty easy fix. The handle switches can cause weird problems. Not so much in the Statler, but those encoder O-rings, they dry up, they crack, and they don't turn. I see you have a plus in the background there, Karen. Is that right?
Yes, plus with an elevate.
Yep. Yep. And if that O-ring dries up and cracks, you start getting long stitches.
Yeah.
And people will get the belts disconnected there for Statlers when those get going, and it's just a little O-ring. It's the small things that you don't think about.
Along that line too, Andy's right. We probably on the hand guided side of things, the issue we get the most is skip stitches. Machine skipping stitches. And most commonly, it's either some type of needle problem, either needle size or the needle's in backwards, those types of things. But the O-rings do come into play a lot, whether they're old and dried up or they've got a lot of lint and fuzz and even sometimes thread wrapped around them. That may cause major issues. But one thing that Andy said made me think, is routine maintenance is a big deal. Talk to your dealer, get on a schedule, for your machine to have it serviced just like you would your vehicle. You take it in for routine maintenance and the problems tend to die down and you won't have to call us as much.
Well, but in regards to what you were saying too, the simple things, people, when we went on the tour last year and talked to a lot of people are still so intimidated by their machines, whether it's a hand-guided machine or a Statler. And when then something doesn't work, it's like, oh my gosh, it's broken. We have a lot of money invested into these machines, and it's intimidating, and myself, I recently upgraded my Classic Plus to a Statler, and I'm using it, hand guided, and I took the belts off because I'm doing ditch work right now, and it's like, what the heck, the channel lock's not working. Why is so I looked in the manual, it says right there, once the belts, but you panic. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to call the dealer already. He was just here, it's like this little panic mode. Who reads the whole manual? I don't.
On that channel lock, I had a really weird thing happen with my Statler, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And maybe you guys have had this call before, and say we're basting the top of the quilt from left to right when you're first starting. And you start out straight on the left-hand side, and over on the right, you're like an inch higher than where you were on the left-hand side. And my channel lock was set at like 1 degree. And it would just increase slightly as I went all the way from one side to the other. I was like, what? That's the most bizarre. There must be something seriously wrong with my machine, right? And I called my dealer, and sure enough, Andrew walked through some of the things, and sure enough, my channel lock was set at 1 degree. And I've seen some people with it. I know I'm not the only one, because I've seen some people actually have that problem on a couple of the groups. So that's probably one you get.
Yep.
Oh, there's Ava again.
Yeah, it's a useful feature, but if you don't know that the degrees in there are not just vertical or horizontal,
Right.
it's can cause a lot of interesting things.
And that can be one of those things too that if you've been a hand guider and you switch over to a Statler that you just may not know about.
Okay, I think this is a good time to take a break, and hopefully Eric and Andy can share some more stuff with us after we get back. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We'll proceed with some more questions for Eric and Andy. It's been most helpful so far, I hope. Anyone? Jody, you were going to ask a question.
Oh, yeah. I want to know what the weirdest one was, the weirdest call or issue, I guess.
So the very weirdest one I had was one. It started off the dealer worked on it, and in the end it was sent back to us at Statler, and I personally worked on that 2 or 3 days at least with some other engineers, and it had me going home almost in tears at night trying to figure out what's going on here. It was an older Mod E, and that's a 3 generation ago controller. The Mod E's had the fluorescent light bulb up in the head, is how you could tell the difference. But they used different connections on the inside the board, so took some more soldering and wire splicing than the new ones, where it's just more plug and play. We've made them a lot easier to repair with the new ones, which I like. But I'd replaced so many things there. Check the connections. We were getting just weird floating voltages. These measurements didn't make sense. Finally, I don't actually remember why I looked in there. There was a wire, and it was supposed to be soldered down. It was inside a sealed box that we got, and it wasn't soldered down. It was floating, so it would go bounce, bounce, touch something metal, bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was there in front of me for 3 days, and that's, I tried to tear it down to the bare bones to find that kind of thing. That'd be the absolute weirdest one I've seen, and it really shows like it's kind of it's we're really good at what we do here at Tech Support. I think, I'll brag and say that we're really good at what we do. But there's without being able to get our hands on the machine, being 1,000, 2,000 miles away, there's some things we just can't do without physically touching the machine, and that's why the dealers are so important. I say this as a joke, but I ask them to do something and say I'd help, but my arms just aren't that long, and that's really we're on the phone still, right? I can't reach out and like there's things I want to do and check, but
You're
it's
not actually a long arm quilter.
exactly.
Right.
Ah,
Well, I'm not a quilter at all, so
I'm gonna have to add it in there.
that'd be the weirdest one, yeah. And it without being able to get my hands on the machine, I would have never been able to fix that. And that's the kind of thing where I really feel the limits of where the dealer can do so much more than I can, and that's great. So
well,
And
but
sometimes it's a partnership between us and the dealer. They may get there and still not necessarily find the problem right away or know exactly what's going on, but they can contact us, and we put our heads together, use our brains and their eyes, and that really helps.
no, but even the dealers are like my dealers 3 hours away, but technology luckily has evolved so much that, like you said earlier, you can chat. Or I had a call in with Andy a few days ago where he actually was able to go take over my computer, and look at to what the situation was. Or we have the Zoom meetings or FaceTime, where you can see a lot more because we're not right in the same place. But when it comes to, looking at the machine, that is a little bit trickier.
So to go back to the strangest things or strangest calls, before Gerald retired, I worked alongside him for quite a while, and was able to overhear a lot of the conversations he had. And a lot of you know Gerald. You've worked with him, talked with him on the phone. He's helped out so many people over the years. He's quite the legend here at Gammill. But I will say, and I won't go into much detail, but you probably will have some issues with your machine, and things probably will break if you should choose to be in the same room and around your quilting machine with your significant other, and things get heated up. I will say that.
Oh, we heard this story.
Yes.
That
It
is
would be a good idea to, just maybe not pursue those things in your quilting room, because things will
Out of the
get broken.
studio.
That Gerald was a little. He turned a little red on that one. And then also more recently, we have a customer who called in numerous times because somebody broke into their home and apparently stole parts off of their quilting machine. And we're not really sure what exactly has happened there because they don't give us a lot of details. So, and we've referred them to their dealer numerous times, and just not real sure about that one. It's a little strange.
Unless her neighbor is also a quilter. And there's
Hello, long armor.
Yeah. Yeah. Sabotage.
spare parts. Go over next door. Mm-mm-mm.
So I have one more question. What's the strangest name you've heard something called? Because I when you said Gerald, it made me think of that, because Gerald spoke thingamajiggy and the wine and the circle thing. So, any
Think on
strange,
that one for a minute.
yeah, strange customer names, I guess you'd say, for things, because they're all the
I bet they
things.
call. I
Yeah.
bet they call a lot and make the sounds. Try to make the sounds.
Yes, they do. And we actually had one yesterday that her machine was making a noise, and it was only when she basted, and she proceeded to make the noise, and it was amazingly accurate. Like, I was really impressed. I thought it was actually the machine making the noise, but it was
I'm not sure what the weirdest people. I get lots of. I get and use lots of thingamajigs, doohickeys, whatchamacallit. The thingy that does the themajig that goes.
Yeah. The white
we have some interesting
Yeah.
we have some interesting interpretations of the word galil. That one always trips people up.
Galil. Let's see. Most people call it like Galil or Gale or Gaelic or
Add all kinds of letters in.
mhm. Or they'll call it the Gammill board.
Have you
Well-
ever heard it pronounced, the Gammill pronounced Jamil?
Gammill.
Gammill, yes.
Pretty common.
Because because that happened to us with my dealer and I. We were doing a show and there was a lady and she said, I'd never heard of Jamil before. It was like, oh, Jamil. So
I've seen a few people type it out with a J instead of a G.
Oh my
they're
goodness.
thinking Genome maybe or something.
Or they'll lose an M or lose an L.
Mhm.
It's bad when they're trying to email us and they don't. If you don't spell Gammill right, you won't
Right.
get to
It's not
us.
gonna get there.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit on the break about there's a feature, and I haven't used it, so I don't know where it is. You can maybe explain it, where people can suggest things or
Yeah. So in Creative Studio 7, underneath Help, we have a suggestion option. It only works if your computer's on the internet, of course. But you pop that and it loads up the. You can drop us a line and say, "Here's a suggestion we have," and that's great because we're always trying to improve this, and we're not quilters here, right? And so we rely on you all to help us make it better. And when you see something that's like, I wish the software would do this, send us a line. That's the kind of thing we want to know because this program's not for me. It's not for us. It's for all you who quilt. And so if it makes it better for you to help you quilt better, that's what it's for.
so that's in Creative Studio. So that's for the Statler users. Is there anything like that for the hand guided users? I know that Creative Studio is just so much more complex and comprehensive than.
I think on the website there's suggested feedback or something.
Yeah.
You can also, and it may be the one that's on the feedback link, but contact@gammill.com. And that actually goes to our marketing people, and then they can kind of send the ideas or the potential issues to where they need to go to get those resolved, or look at adding some new feature.
You guys actually do sit down and open the suggestion box.
Oh yeah, yep. I usually it's a daily basis that the marketing forwards me emails from the contact@gammill.com. The ones that they send me are ones where people are having technical issues and they need help. But they do look at those on a daily basis. Yeah.
I had one more last question in regards, you mentioned CS7, and just again, being on the group, it seems that there's a lot of people, relatively high amount, that are using older versions of Creative Studio. Now, is that more difficult for you to, you literally, have to know all the ins and outs about all the versions to be able to help those people, or do you encourage them to upgrade to the latest, version?
Yeah, we absolutely do encourage that. And I'll let Andy go a little bit more into the why. But one of the earliest ones was precision stitch, and some people will be familiar with that. And we've recently made the decision to stop supporting precision stitch. It just isn't a good use of our time or our resources. And I understand that people like what they like, but it becomes increasingly difficult to, especially when you're involved with software and computers. It becomes increasingly difficult as years go by to continue making them work the way they should, making them work well. And so, we encourage people to upgrade, and sometimes that requires a computer upgrade, but that's the way of the tech world. And it's very similar to, Microsoft. They recently, towards the beginning of the year, stopped supporting Windows 7. And you just won't get help from them from that. and that's the way we have to go with our software as well. But Andy, you can kind of go into more of the challenges of supporting the older versions.
So, I mean, the biggest one is on the older systems, I can't remote into your computer and take a look. On the newest one, it's built in. It takes 3 clicks, and you're like, oh, I'm on your computer now. And I can see everything you do on the computer, and it's so much easier there. And we've built each new software version easier for us to work with too. So there's more tools to help diagnose the problems. Precision Stitch is 20-ish years old now. You know, it is very much a software I don't know. You know, I know some of the bare bones about it. I can help with getting to diagnostics in it, but we're so limited in what we can do, and it's like trying to it can be like trying to diagnose your car when you have a brick tablet to display the problem. It's like it just makes life so much more difficult to try and fix it. When in the new Creative Studio, I have a very fine hammer. I can tap stuff, hear the sounds, have a lot more control, and also as I said, Precision Stitch. People call and say, how do you do a relocate in Creative Studio 7? I'm not a quilter. We don't really want to do that, but I can still walk you through a relocate if I need to in 7 and 6 and 4.2. But the further you go back, the less we see it and the less we're able to help just because of the age of it. And I tell everyone, you know, there's changes, but they're good changes. You know, it's easier to do an edge to edge in the newest version.
Yeah, we hear a lot of, we wish, you know, Creative Studio would do this or would do that, and that's what the new releases are. That's why we put out new versions. Is we're trying to respond to those people that, you know, that want something that it doesn't do before, or they want it to work better than it did, and that, you know, that's what you get with the newest versions.
And it is a free download to everybody. So somebody that's using 4.2, say, could easily download it in SAM mode and play with it and learn it, and still use in their business 4.2 until they know 7.1.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's even easier for the people who are like, say you're running 6, which is, I'd say 6 is the most common one that people run besides 7 right now. You can run, if your Stitcher computer can run 7 and 6, you can use them both on the same computer. Just don't open them at the same time. It doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say I'm not even a computer person, but you know, I draw in Creative Studio. So having no experience, I started with 7, and now I'm drawing some things in 6. If I don't know who wouldn't upgrade to 7,
Right.
because it's so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you use the node view then a lot?
Yes.
And that's one thing that definitely helps too, is, you know, as a company, we can say upgrade to this newest version, it's the best. Well, of course we're going to say that, you know, but those Facebook groups that we've talked about a lot, you know, when other quilters encourage the quilters that are a little nervous or scared to upgrade, and they can encourage them and say, you know, I've tried it. Yeah, it was challenging, but I'm glad I did. You know, that encouragement and that support goes a long way.
Yeah.
I think it helps. You know, we're not charging for the software. You can get the newest software for free as much as you want. That's part of our, you know, that's our company. It's, you know, when we say upgrade, it's not because we're making money off the new software. It's because we want you to have the best experience you can and do as much quilting as you can.
Yeah.
We're thankful for that.
Yes.
and for the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
We like happy quilters. Uh-oh, there's 2 Evas now.
She's frozen on the other one.
Yeah.
New game will feature cloning.
We do have a cloning tool.
7.3.
Look, and now you can use your styler and handgun at the same time.
Okay, what awesome information. I think it's time to wrap it up. We want to thank Eric and Andy so much. This was most helpful, and to me, and I'm sure for everyone else. And don't hesitate. If you have any issues, as they were saying, start with your dealer, and then get directed to either one of them and the other staff that's there as well. And thank you for joining us. And take care, everyone.
You're
Thank you.
having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.